Sarah Jensen was not an ordinary person. Sarah was 12 years old when she saw her father, John Jensen, leave for another normal day of work at the mechanic's shop. He always gave her 3 kisses before leaving, one on the forehead and one on each cheek. "It's so you never forget how much Daddy loves you," he would say. That day was no different. Except it would be the last time. An accident at the shop, a poorly suspended car. In seconds, little Sarah's life turned upside down. Mary, Sarah's mother, was a house cleaner and now found herself alone to raise her daughter. Do you know what she did? She started working double shifts. During the day, she cleaned houses. At night, she sewed clothes on the side. Sarah often slept on the living room sofa, waiting for her mother to come back, with her school uniform already pressed and folded next to her. "Why do you iron my uniform so late, Mom?" Sarah would ask. "Because when you wake up, my daughter, I want you to feel like the most important person in the world." It was from this warrior mother that Sarah inherited her strength, and it was from her father that she inherited the dream of helping others. John always fixed people's cars for free if they couldn't pay. Life is a Ferris wheel, daughter. Today you help, tomorrow you are helped. At 18, when Sarah announced she had been accepted into medical school, Mary cried, not from joy, but from worry. "How are we going to pay, daughter?" But Sarah already had a plan. During the day, she would be the dedicated student sitting in the front row. In the afternoon, the attentive intern in the emergency room. And at night? Well, at night she transformed into the most optimistic pizza delivery girl in New York. 3 different jobs, 3 different uniforms, but the same smile on her face. While her college friends posted pictures from parties, Sarah posted pictures of her worn-out sneakers from running between appointments. "Another pair that couldn't take it," she joked on social media. The tiny apartment she shared with her mother was 2 hours from campus. Sarah woke up at 5 a.m. to study on the bus. You know those people you see sleeping on public transport with a book on their lap? That was her, with her anatomy atlas. But the most incredible part, Sarah never, ever complained. When friends asked if it wasn't too heavy, she would respond with that smile that had become her trademark. "Every page I study is for my dad, every shift I work is for my mom, and every pizza I deliver is for that patient who will one day need me." And here's something interesting. She kept a slice of pizza from each flavor she delivered in a small notebook. Next to it, she wrote a lesson she had learned that day. "Pepperoni pizza. From Mr. Johnson. I learned that even the toughest men cry when they talk about their grandchildren." "Vegetarian pizza from Mrs. Williams. I discovered that it's never too late to start over. She began doing yoga at 78. Sarah turned every delivery into a story, every customer into a teacher, every tip into an achievement. She wasn't just delivering pizzas, she was collecting life stories. But on that rainy night, when she rang the doorbell of the Metropolitan Tower penthouse, Sarah had no idea she was about to live the most important story of all. And ironically, it would be with the person who valued her stories the least. Marcus Thompson was the perfect stereotype of a Wall Street billionaire. At 45, he had built an empire worth $8.2 billion. His office occupied 3 entire floors in Manhattan, and his triplex penthouse had a privileged view of Central Park. But there was a price for such success. 2 divorces, hardly any true friends, and a terrible reputation for mistreating his employees. His philosophy was simple. If you're not useful to me, you don't deserve my respect. It was 11:42 p.m. Sarah had just delivered her 9th pizza of the day. Her soaked sneakers made that squish-squish sound with every step, and her thermal backpack was starting to let water in. Her phone showed 5 unread messages from her mother. "Daughter, this rain is really strong. Better go home." "Sarah? I'm worried. At least reply to me." Sarah smiled, imagining her mother awake, waiting. She was about to respond when the phone rang. It was Luigi, the pizzeria owner. "Sarah, I know your shift is ending, but I have one last delivery, Metropolitan Tower special pizza." She looked up at the dark sky, then at the clock. Her shift ended in 18 minutes. "How much time do I have?" 30 minutes. It's a VIP customer. Sarah took a deep breath. The Metropolitan Tower was on the other side of the city. With that rain. Impossible. Luigi, I'll pay double time. The sound of the rain seemed deafening as she thought about the textbooks she needed to buy for the next semester. I'm on my way. The pizza in question was no ordinary pizza. Neapolitan with truffles, gluten-free, $89. Sarah held the box as if she were carrying gold. In a sense, it was. The GPS showed 28 minutes. Sarah knew a shortcut. I'll make it, she thought. But New York had other plans. A fallen tree, 3 blocked streets, a broken traffic light. Time was slipping away like water down her jacket. 11:57 p.m. Sarah finally arrived at the Metropolitan Tower. Soaked, out of breath, but with the pizza intact. Identification, the security guard asked, not looking up. Delivery for the penthouse. The guard looked her up and down. Sarah recognized that look. It was the same she received when she said she was studying medicine. Wait in the garage. I don't want water in the lobby. 10 minutes. 10 long minutes sitting in the garage, watching the drops fall from her clothes onto the immaculate floor. Another 5 minutes waiting for the exclusive elevator. 12:14 a.m., 32 minutes since the order. Sarah took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. Maybe he would understand. Maybe. The door opened. Marcus Thompson was not what Sarah had expected. In the Forbes photos, he looked bigger, more intimidating. In person, he was just a middle-aged man wearing a robe that probably cost more than her college tuition. Finally, his voice sliced through the air like ice. Good evening, sir. I'm sorry for the 32 minutes, he interrupted her, pointing at a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. Do you know how much each minute of my time is worth, girl? Sarah swallowed hard. The pizza was still steaming in the box. Sir, I can explain. No, you can't explain. His voice echoed down the hall. People like you never understand. Time is money, my money. That's when it happened. A drop. A single drop of water from Sarah's hair fell onto the Persian rug in the foyer. Marcus's face turned red. Look what you did! That rug costs more than 5 years of your miserable salary! Sarah felt tears forming but held them back. Her father always said that dignity has no price. Marcus snatched the pizza from her hands, throwing it onto a marble table. It must be cold. How do you expect me to eat this? Then, in a gesture that made Sarah's stomach churn, he pulled out his genuine crocodile wallet and fished out a $1 bill. Here, buy yourself a watch. Maybe then you'll learn the value of people's time who are important. Sarah looked at the outstretched bill. In it, she saw the overtime she worked, the crowded buses, the sleepless nights studying. She saw her father, who never charged clients who couldn't pay. She saw her mother ironing uniforms at dawn. With a calmness that surprised even herself, Sarah took a step back. Keep your dollar, Mr. Thompson. Time teaches many things, including humility. The door slammed hard enough to make the walls tremble. In the elevator, finally alone, Sarah allowed a single tear to roll down her cheek. Not out of sadness or anger, it was out of compassion. What an empty life someone must have to belittle others to feel great, she thought. Little did she know that in 3 weeks, fate would bring their paths to cross again, and this time, well, this part of the story will make you rethink everything you believe about karma. 3 weeks after that rainy night, Sarah was at her internship at New York Presbyterian Hospital. It was a quiet day, if there is such a thing as a quiet day in a New York emergency room. Jensen, called Dr. Richards, the chief physician. Go get coffee for the team. Sarah smiled internally. Of course, the intern always gets the coffee. Some things never change. But that day, something was going to change. She was in the cafeteria when the loudspeakers echoed, Code Blue! Code Blue! Cardiac emergency at the main entrance. Sarah's heart raced. A code blue meant someone was literally dying. Running back to the ER, she saw the commotion. Paramedics pushing a stretcher, nurses rushing, doctors shouting orders. Man! 45 years old, possible heart attack. Blood pressure 190 over 110. Prepare emergency room 1. That's when time seemed to freeze. In the midst of all that chaos, Sarah saw the patient's face. No longer the intimidating man in the silk robe, no longer the arrogant billionaire from the penthouse, just a scared man clutching his chest, fighting for air. Marcus Thompson. For a split second, Sarah felt that rainy night coming back to her mind. The dollar, the humiliation, the Persian rug. But then she heard her father's voice. Life is a Ferris wheel, daughter. The medical team was already preparing the standard protocol for a heart attack. Dr. Richards, the same one who had just sent her to get coffee, was leading the response. That's when Sarah noticed something was wrong. The sound. The pulse had a different sound, too irregular for a common heart attack. She knew that pattern. She had studied it the night before while delivering pizzas. Dr. Richards! She called out. Silence. Dr. Richards, please! Not now, Jensen. Sarah looked at Marcus. His lips were starting to turn blue. There wasn't time for hierarchies. Doctor! It's an aortic dissection! The whole room froze. Dr. Richards turned around, furious. How dare you! Listen to the pulse! Sarah insisted, her voice trembling but firm. The irregularity. It's not a heart attack pattern. If we administer anticoagulants now, he dies, Dr. Richards completed, finally hearing what Sarah was pointing out. The next moments were frantic. The protocol was changed. Every second counted. Jensen, where did you learn to identify this? Dr. Richards asked as they worked. Sarah nearly laughed. Studying on the bus at 5 a.m., doctor. 2 hours later, Marcus Thompson was stabilized. The aortic dissection, a condition much more serious than a common heart attack, had been identified in time. If they had followed the original protocol, Sarah was organizing some medical records when Dr. Richards approached her. You saved his life today. I just did my job, doctor. No, you did more than that. You trusted your instinct when everyone, including me, was going down the wrong path. He paused. Why did you care so much? Sarah looked out the hospital window. Outside, the rain began to fall, just like that night. Because my father taught me that every life has value, even those who don't know it yet. What Sarah didn't know was that Marcus Thompson was awake at that moment, and more importantly, he was listening to every word. And folks, get ready, because what happened after that night will make you rethink everything you believe about fate, forgiveness, and redemption. For a week, Marcus remained hospitalized. Sarah, even though she wasn't his assigned nurse, passed by his room whenever she could to check his vital signs. It was during one of those visits that he finally recognized her. You're the pizza girl, Sarah smiled. Yes, Mr. Thompson, how are you feeling today? The silence that followed was deafening. Tears began to stream down the billionaire's face. Why? He asked. Why did you help me after the way I treated you? Sarah sat down next to his bed. You know, Mr. Thompson, my father always said that a person's true wealth is not in their bank account, but in how they treat others. When I saw you on that stretcher, I didn't see the man in the penthouse. I just saw someone in need of help. And now, folks, we come to the part of this story that gives me chills every time I tell it. Because, you see, sometimes life has a funny way of teaching us lessons, and Marcus Thompson's transformation was one of those that changes not just one person, but entire generations. After being discharged from the hospital, Marcus spent days locked away in his penthouse. The same Persian rugs that once worried him so much now seemed empty of meaning. His cell phone rang incessantly, calls from Wall Street, important meetings, millions at stake. But for the first time in 30 years, Marcus Thompson did not answer. Instead, he did something he had never done before. He thought. He thought about life, death, and, most importantly, about a young medical student who had every reason in the world to let him die, but chose to save him. One morning, his driver found him in the most unlikely place, sitting on the sidewalk in front of the pizzeria where Sarah worked. Mr. Thompson, is everything okay? Marcus was watching the delivery drivers leave with their thermal backpacks. Young people like Sarah racing against time, against the rain, against fate. "James," he said to the driver, "how many years have you worked for me?" 15 years, sir." "And what is the name of your youngest son?" The driver hesitated. In 15 years, it was the first time his boss had asked him a personal question. "Matthew, sir. He's 7 years old." "Matthew," Marcus repeated, savoring each syllable. "What does he dream of being?" "A doctor, sir." "But—" The driver lowered his eyes. "With my salary—" Marcus stood up from the sidewalk, dusting off his $2,000 Italian pants. "James, call my lawyer and my accountant. We have work to do." In the following weeks, something extraordinary began to happen. Marcus delved into a deep investigation of Sarah's life. Not as a stalker, but as someone determined to understand the real value of people. He learned about the mornings on the bus studying anatomy, about the mother who worked a uniform job in the early hours, about the mechanic father who fixed cars for free. Every detail was a needle in his conscience. One afternoon, he showed up unannounced at the hospital. "I need to speak with intern Jensen," he said to the receptionist. Sarah met him in the cafeteria, the same place where she had heard the code blue on that fateful day. "Mr. Thompson, are you feeling okay?" Marcus was holding a plain coffee, one of those from a machine, not his usual imported espresso. "You know, Sarah, I spent my whole life building skyscrapers, but I never stopped to see the people who lived in their shadows." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is a proposal. No, actually, it's an apology in the form of action." And inside the envelope was the project for the Thompson Foundation for Future Doctors. But it wasn't just a common foundation, it was a revolution. Full scholarships for medical students who worked to pay for college, housing assistance, transportation vouchers, food vouchers, and the most incredible part, a mentorship program where each scholar committed to helping the next one after graduation. "Why?" Sarah asked, her hands trembling as she held the paper. "Because you showed me that true wealth is not in what we have, but in what we can give." But Marcus didn't stop there. He bought the pizzeria where Sarah worked and turned it into a chain. Each unit had a unique policy. It only employed college students with flexible hours and above-market wages. On the wall of each store, a neon sign read, "Every delivery is a dream in motion." The most touching part? In every pizzeria, there was a small notebook where the delivery drivers could write their stories of the day, just like Sarah did. At the end of the year, the best stories received scholarships. Marcus began to appear at board meetings wearing a peculiar pin, a small pizza. When executives laughed, he would say, "This pizza saved me twice. Once when I was dying and once when I was just existing. And that dollar, the one he had offered to Sarah as a tip, he keeps it framed in his office with an inscription, 'The price of arrogance is blindness to daily miracles.'" 10 years have passed since that rainy night. And guess where Sarah is now? No, she's not just doctor. Sarah Jensen Thompson, head of the cardiology department at New York Presbyterian, she is so much more than that. Every day at 7 a.m., Sarah walks through the hospital lobby, but not by the usual path. She always makes a point to pass by the East Wing, where a golden plaque shines on the wall. John Jensen Wing of Humanized Treatment. Yes, her father's name, the mechanic who never charged clients who couldn't pay, and that last name, Thompson. That's an interesting story. And remember the day Marcus came with the foundation project? Well, he wasn't alone. His son, David Thompson, was with him, though I didn't mention that before. David, who always disagreed with his father's actions, had insisted on accompanying him that day. As Marcus and Sarah discussed the details of the foundation, David watched, fascinated, as that young doctor whom his father had once humiliated spoke with such passion about helping others. A year later, David invited her for coffee. At the pizzeria, of course. 2 years later, they were engaged. 3 years later, they were married. But this isn't a fairy tale where the poor girl marries the billionaire's son and they live happily ever after. No, it's much better than that. Sarah and David transformed the Thompson Foundation into something revolutionary. Today, They don't just train doctors, they train humanity. The pizzeria where it all began. It's now a chain with over 50 locations, all with the same purpose. It's to give opportunities to those who dream big. But there's one special location, the original. And you won't believe who makes deliveries there. Once a month. Marcus Thompson. Yes, the billionaire. Every first Sunday of the month, he puts on the delivery uniform and goes out to make deliveries. No cameras, no publicity, no fanfare. Customers usually can't believe it when they open the door and see one of the richest men in New York with a thermal backpack on his back. "Why do you do this, Dad?" David once asked. "Because every delivery reminds me of who I don't want to be again," Marcus replied. And that little notebook where Sarah wrote down her delivery stories? It's in the Thompson Foundation Museum. Next to it, a new collection of notebooks grows every year, each filled with stories of students who, like Sarah, are turning their deliveries into dreams. But the most special detail happens every Friday night. Sarah, now a renowned heart surgeon, always orders a pizza. When the delivery person arrives, she makes sure to give a generous tip and says, "Save your stories. One day they might save someone." And the cherry on top? Sarah and David's daughter, little Mary, named after her grandmother, who is 6 years old, has a dream. She wants to be a pizza delivery person. Wall Street executives find it amusing. Sarah and David feel proud. And Marcus? Well, Marcus cries every time his granddaughter says that. "Why do you cry, Grandpa?" Mary asks. "Because sometimes," he replies, "a pizza is so much more than a pizza. It's a second chance." And you know that framed dollar in Marcus's office? Next to it, there's now a new photo. Mary, wearing a little toy thermal backpack, smiling beside her grandfather, both dressed in delivery uniforms. In his latest interview with Forbes, Marcus Thompson, now known more for his philanthropy than his investments, said something profound. "I spent half my life accumulating wealth, and the other half learning that the true value lies in people. A pizza delivery person taught me more about success than Harvard Business School. It's not how much money you have, it's the impact you have on other people's lives." So folks, did this story move you as much as it moved me? Tell me in the comments, have you ever judged someone by their appearance and then been surprised? Have you ever been judged and had the chance to prove your worth? Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss our next inspiring stories. See you next time.